Well, you asked for it, and here it is, a paint mixing video. Hello, and welcome to Fiona's Creative Canvas. I'm Fiona. Let's get started. Okay, so I've got my main ingredients here, which is Liquitex pouring medium. This is the gloss, and also Australian Floetrol. Now, a lot of you might be gasping right now because I know Australian Floetrol is expensive in other parts of the world. I'm in Australia, so this is what I've got to work with. So I would suggest messing around with the Floetrol that's available to you and the different ratios that you could use for these two products. We also will need some cups for mixing our paints in and some stirrers. Now, the other thing I suggest is to use the same type of cup or mixer. Like I have different cups here that I use, but if we use these, they're going to feel, each item will feel different when you're stirring it. This feels very different to this, and same with your mixing sticks. I have small ones that I've used in the past. I find the wider ones much better for feeling the consistency, and also when you drop the paint off the mixer into your cup to see how it lands, you pick up more paint with this, whereas this tends to give you a bit of a different result. So that's that. We also need something for measuring. Now I have a few cups here. This one actually has the measurements on the side that I could use, or I could just use different size cups and use these as a part. So this would be like one part, and then if I needed 3 parts, I'd put 3 of these in. We also need some containers to put our pouring medium in. So I've started saving some of these old Floetrol bottles, and as you can see, this is my mix. So I'll be putting 1 part Floetrol and 1 part Liquitex pouring medium into this. I also use this for the same medium because this has a smaller nozzle. So if I'm just trying to add a little bit of pouring medium, I will use it out of here because I've got a lot more control of how quickly it flows out of this. Then we need some paints. So I picked out some paints today to use. I've tried to pick a couple of different brands, and I've picked out the wrong paint for that. I need oxide black because I'll be using that for my swipe mix. I've also got some gel medium here. Now I'm going to be using that to mix in with my extreme sheen because this is quite a bit runnier. The last thing is a mat of some kind for making a mess on. So I've just recently bought this silicone mat, but before that I started off using these puppy pads. A lot of people wonder what the blue things are. Well, they're puppy pads. So when I use these, I know that they're going to soak up a lot of my paint. So they're great for spills and stuff, but you know, you can save your paint off it, but you'll probably have to strain it because it'll probably get fibers in it when you try and scrape it up. I've also tried witch's paper, but when you try and scrape the paint off this, it tends to tear. So that didn't work so good either. And then I also use this. Now this works great. This is just baking paper, and it's very easy to get your paint off and scoop it up and reuse it. So yeah, that's that. Let's get mixing. If you're new here, you might not realize that I've only been doing this for 6 months, acrylic pouring. So I have not had a lot of experience in mixing paints. So the only pour that I'm really happy with at the moment is probably my swipes. They come out beautifully. I'm still messing around with consistency a little bit, and I would like to come up with something that's a little bit cheaper than this fix if I can. But at the moment this is working and it's what I'm sticking with. So that's what you would have seen me use. So let's make this up. Now on the side of this bottle, it's very handy. It has measurements 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm going to go up to the 2 with the Floetrol and then up to the 4 with the Liquitex pouring medium, and then just give it a shake. Oh, and this is my funnel. So it fits just inside there. This is just the top of a bottle. I think it was a water bottle. So yeah, that's what I use as a funnel because I didn't want to go buy one. Got to save money somewhere, right? Okay, so usually I hold this up to the light to see where I'm up to. Let's start pouring. Fortunately, the Floetrol pours out very easily. I know if you've got the US Floetrol, I've heard that you need to strain that. But you don't have to with the Australian Floetrol. Okay, so we're only up to 1 there. I'm just holding it up to the light to see where I'm up to. 1.5. Obviously you can do this on a much smaller scale. You could mix up using a cup like this if you just wanted to make a small amount for doing a small canvas, and go 100, 200, and you'll have 200 mils of your mix. But since I love this swipe technique and I'm trying to save time so I get more time to edit, I use a big container to mix in. Alright, so that's about right. So that's my Floetrol. So if you're using a different Floetrol, yeah, maybe use a little bit extra. Now I haven't opened this yet, so I'm going to give it a shake. Let's see if I need to give it a stir. It's quite sticky, so it's a bit like glue. Oh. Now I just saw a little bit of the dry stuff fall in. I want to grab that so it doesn't end up in my paint mix at some point. Okay, so we've got a few bubbles in there from me shaking, but it looks like it's fairly well mixed. And this is a lot harder to pour out of a big tub like this, but it's the cheapest way to buy it. If you try and buy, originally when I bought some of this, I bought a much smaller container and it was expensive. So the only way I can save money is by buying it by the tub. So it makes me look very professional these days. All right. Let's have a go. This is a good reason to have a mat because this is where you're going to get the spill. But let's see how good I can be at this. Not very good at all. Okay. Let me just get something to scoop that off. Let's try this. Because we don't want to waste any. Okay, let's try that again. I'm going to go very, very slow this time. I've still made a mess. I'll pick that up as well. This is another reason why I like to do it in a big batch, because it's messy, can be, and I don't want to have to keep doing this every time. My fingers are sticking together now. Alright, I'm going to clean this up and then we'll get mixing paints. Okay, let's give our pouring medium a bit of a shake. Make sure that's all mixed in well together. And I'm going to mix 3 different colours here. Now, as you can see, I'll put it that way. I have 4 cups out because I'm thinking about doing a bonus mix of a type of paint I haven't done before. So that could be interesting. Stick around for that. Alright. I'm going to use this cup here as my measurement. And this is a 50 ml cup. These cups are 227 or something like that. A lot of you probably work in fluid ounces. A cup like this has fluid ounces and milliliters on it. Look at the state of my hands. So that's from the Liquitex pouring medium. It like forms another skin. So you might want to wear gloves, but I haven't today, so we'll just work with it. Right. Amsterdam's probably one of the paints I use the most, so, and I haven't mixed this one up yet. So this is burnt sienna. So what I'm going to do, it's been a while actually since I've measured, but because you guys are here for a mixing video, I'm going to do a measurement and I'm going to hope that it works out perfect. So I'm going to do 1 part paint of the Amsterdam to 3 parts pouring medium, which is the 1 part Floetrol, 1 part Liquitex pouring medium, and then I'm going to give it a mix. So these days I'm working a lot off consistency. So 1 part, 3 parts pouring medium, 1, 2, you know what? It's probably going to be a lot. Oh well, looks like I'm going to be doing a lot of paintings with burnt sienna, I would say. Going to make that much for you guys. And then, so that was my 3 parts pouring medium, and now I'm doing 1 part paint. So you could also do this with scales. Tip that in. The reason that I did the, because I'm measuring it this way, the reason I did the pouring medium first is because it makes the paint fall out a lot easier. All right, let's give that a mix. And check the consistency and how that's looking. It's actually looking pretty good. Now I think something that I'm starting to notice with my swipes is the consistency of your paint might change the size of your lacing. So can you see that? Bring it over here. So trace, leaves a slight trace. It probably could be a fraction thicker. So I think if it, I'm just going to add a tiny bit. That was quite a small amount that I added. And just mix that up. Now the other thing you can use for measuring is scales. So you could go by weight. So many ways to do it. This is just how I do it. It's not right or wrong. So I'm going to test that shortly and see. No, I might test it now. So I've got this chart here. Let's put it this way. And I often use this for testing my swipe or any of my mixes, just to see how runny they are, or to at least make sure that they're all very similar. Just going to do a little test. Now this idea I got from Tammy Anderson art. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yep. So I like it anywhere between 5 and 6. So this is slightly on the runny side, but I did put a fair amount of paint down. Okay, next we're going to do the Liquitex Basics Iridescent White. I forgot to tell you, this pouring medium, I didn't invent it. The idea for this came from Cos Creations. I was trying to copy one of her pouring mediums. I'm pretty sure she uses the US Floetrol though. And just going to put a fraction less in this cup. That's only because I think this one's a little bit thin. Oh, I hope I've got enough. I do have another tube of this though. Look how much extra I got out of that. But I want to grab it a little bit more. Okay, and tip that in. And then we'll give that one a mix. So it feels really runny when you start mixing, but as it starts to combine, you can feel it getting thicker. Because firstly you're just mixing through you can feel the pouring medium, which is quite thin, but then once the paint blends in with the pouring medium, you can feel it getting a bit thicker. Oh, I love this iridescent white. Let's have a look at that. Yeah, that's good. That's good, look at that. So warm honey is often a term that's used. Runny honey. So that's that one. Just compare. Yeah, they feel about the same. Right, next. This one I'm going to do a little differently because it's my bronze in the Deca Art Extreme Sheen. Now I notice when I get these I have to give them a good shake because whatever's in them tends to separate. Plus I've got this gel medium. because I've also found that this is quite runny. So this will be a different amount of my mix, and I'm going to have to go purely on feel for this one. So I don't think I'm even going to use that, which may confuse some of you. So let's give it a whirl. I'll show you what it's like to work off consistency. So I'm going to add my colour. I don't want to make as much as that either. And then I'm going to add some gloss medium. And probably, I've only done this a few times now, but I'd say maybe about the same amount of colour to gloss medium. So about 1 part paint, 1 part gloss medium. That's roughly. So you can see in there how much I've got. And I'm going to combine that. And then I get something that looks a little bit more like a tube paint. See? Now this is just the way I like to do it, because I've found that the extreme sheen paints tend to spread a bit. So now I've got that in, I want to add probably, if that was my 1 part paint, maybe 2.5 to 3 parts of my pouring medium. So I'm going to start with that, and then I'm going to give that a mix. And then if it's too thick, I'll add more pouring medium. It's easier to add more pouring medium than it is to add the paints. You can see the colours changed now. And I can tell you that I'd say that this is too runny, which now gives me a problem. And the problem is, if I try and add this now, it ends up being lumpy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this cup. It's had a little bit of the Liquitex, but that's fine. Because it's a white, it doesn't bother me that much. And I'm going to mix up a bit more of my, see, look at the difference in the colour there. Looks like a completely different colour. I know that this is going to dry like this. Okay. So mix that up first, because if I try and do that, if I try and put that in there, it's just going to end up with lumps, and then when I pour my paint I get lumps. I can see the lumps, but I can't pick them up because they're just gel. But then they dry and they don't look very good. So these are just a few little things I've learnt along the way through practice. Okay, let's add that. Still not thick enough to add the rest. And this is how my mixing usually goes. I just keep trying to get the right consistency and use the same pouring medium. But this is too runny. It's still not thick enough. So I think doing that same process again will probably make it about right. All right, I think I'm pretty happy with that. It's a bit thicker now. So let's do another test and see if these are all the same. Let's face it so you can see. Let's start with our iridescent white. The other key is to try and get your size of your puddles all about the same. Careful. Sometimes I put too much. Okay, now let's test this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so according to this, I could probably add a little bit of the Floetrol back in, of the pouring medium, just a little bit. I'm not going to go crazy. These two are close enough for me. Although I probably could add a little bit more paint. I wouldn't add, I think this one's perfect. Okay, so now that I've got my paints mixed, I'm going to make up some extra swipe mix. Now I'm going with the black swipe mix today, and I'm going to be using Oxide Black by Amsterdam. All I do, I don't actually worry about the consistency of this because I have it pretty much right. I do 1 part paint to 3 parts Floetrol. So we'll get the Australian Floetrol out again, and that's what we're going to be using. So again, if you're just opening it, give it a bit of a shake because it does tend to separate a little bit. And if it's not the Australian Floetrol, use a strainer as well. So I'll go. I don't want a huge amount, so what I usually do is I do 1 full cup, and then I fill this up halfway. A little bit more. And this is a guess, so it doesn't have to be exact. I don't know if you can see, but it's halfway. And then I get my Oxide Black, and top it up. The reason I do it this way, I put the Oxide Black and it pushes up the Floetrol, and then I know I've got a perfect amount. Because if you put it in first, you end up with like a blob, and it's hard to tell actually whether it's half or not. And yep, give that a mix. I'm using a smaller one and a different container this time because I know I don't need to worry about checking the consistency. And yeah, that's it basically. That's my swipe mix. Then I put it into a bottle like this to keep it fresh. So what else do I need to tell you? Oh yes, that's right, I was going to do a special mix. Let's get this cup out because I want it to be the same, and I have pigments. I've got pearl white here and almond, and these are from Just Resin. These are a powder pigment. I'm going to try the almond, and I think I'll mix it with my gel medium first, and then I'll put some pouring medium in. So on the side of this, there's a alert of not breathing in the dust. So I've got myself a mask, because we all have those since COVID. I'm going to put that on, so if I sound a bit muffled, that's why. And I'm going to use a small stick, because from what I've heard, and you guys, if anybody out there knows more about mixing than me, give me an idea of how to mix this stuff. So I'm going to put, so you're not supposed to need very much. So I'm going to try that. I probably should have put this in first. With that. Let's have a look. Ooh, splashing. I probably needed a smaller cup, but this is probably going to be quite difficult to mix. So I'm going to squash it against the side here. Put a bit more in. And I'm going to put a little bit more pigment. Because that's pure pigment. Now, when I add the pouring medium to this, I would say to be very careful, because if I put too much in, it's going to be a real pain to try and mix this up again. It's a pretty colour. Alright, so I'm going to use this bottle because it's a lot easier to control how much pouring medium I put in. So I'm just going to put a small amount first and just try and thin down the consistency. As you can see, it looks lumpy. You see that? Now I know a lot of people have like mixers and things for mixing pigments. I actually haven't looked at a lot of videos on mixing pigments, but I just thought, bonus content, let's have a go. So I'm mixing that quite a bit. And this is starting to look better. I don't like how the pigment's dulled, but I bet you when it dries on a painting, it's going to look lovely. Alright, happy with that. I'm going to change to my bigger stick now. So that I can feel to get the same consistency as this over here. I probably could have gone a smaller cup, but it is mixing fairly well. But still too thick because it's not really dripping off my stick very well. So some of you guys out there, if you've mixed pigments before, please leave a comment. Tell me how you do it. Okay. So it's gone quite great. You see, probably easier to see here. Okay, I'm going to leave it like that. I may add a little bit of Van Dyke Brown in there because I'm not sure how this is going to react. Yeah, I'm happy with that. You can see in this one there's not quite enough light, but I'm happy with that. So that's it. Now I would like to mention that the swipe mix, that I got that recipe from watching Molly's Artistry. So that was what she was using, 3 parts Floetrol, Australian Floetrol to 1 part paint. And then the colours, I got that from Cos Creations, Kathleen from Cos Creations, but I think she uses the US Floetrol. So I can't remember whether she went 50-50, I think, or whether I changed it slightly, because Australian Floetrol is a bit runnier than the US Floetrol. So I might have changed the amount that I used. I can't remember exactly what her ratios are, but you could have a look at hers. And that's about it. I can take this mask off now. That's the colour of the almond. It's quite pretty. Looking forward to seeing how that dries. I mean, I've added a little bit of the Van Dyke Brown, but I want to see how it dries. That'll be a good experiment. If you want to see how that dries, stay tuned for the next video. So that's it, guys. I hope you enjoyed that. I hope that helps with your swipes. Just remember, it's a work in progress. I'll probably play around with this even more and eventually have a totally different swipe, but this is working and gives good results. So it's just a bit expensive. Yeah, I didn't add any water to my mix, you may have noticed. So if you have any other questions about the mixing, leave them in the comments below and I'll try to get back to you. And yeah, that's it for this one, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye.